it's 7:10. We're gonna go ahead and just start the meeting. Thank you, Trent Mayers from Wine Journeys. Trent, I'll let you talk about your experience and how you got into this, and then your presentation. Just a reminder that this is in celebration of International Women's Day. And if we could all do the pose, please. So choose to challenge. We're choosing to challenge inequality. I think there's another person. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Trent. Don't forget to print off your passport to win. This is for entering the grand prizes, okay? And we do need registered. We do need your last name. We can't just award a prize on a first name, unfortunately. So, yeah. So Trent, without further ado, hello, welcome. If everybody could just mute yourself, please. And go ahead. I'll pass it over to Trent.
Okay, perfect. I am going to share my screen and bring up my presentation because my introduction is actually a part of my presentation. So let me just share my screen and then I will disappear, I think, the way this works. Do that just in case.
There we go. Wow, lovely.
There, okay. I hope everyone can see it. Good.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is what do wine ratings really mean? Or I simplify it down to how I learned to love shopping for a good bottle of wine, because you really should love shopping for wine. It shouldn't be a chore. So a little bit about me, who I am. I'm a 32-year resident of Barrie. I've been married for, I guess, almost 35 years now to Sue Carr, who will be speaking later this week. And I am a cat dad to 3 cats, and we have 1 horse as well, which is Sue's. I won't take credit for that. And like most people, I'm many things. I'm a scientist actually by training, partially. I have a Master of Science in Microbiology. But I've also been trained by the Wine and Spirits Education Trust in London to the advanced level. So my wine knowledge and my science are an interesting little mix I have. It gives me a little bit of different understanding of wine. And my company, Wine Journeys, I formed it just because there is so much wine out there, and we all get into the thing of we buy the things we normally buy, and we don't stretch the envelope much. And there's so much wonderful wine out there, and I know because of what I do that the wine world's gigantic. I really like to help people explore that and widen their wine world and give them some confidence when they go to buy some wine, because I think that's one of the things that why people don't buy different wines. It's just they don't feel confident trying that new wine. So Wine Journeys holds events to help you get that confidence and have that knowledge so that you can go and buy that new wine and not worry about it. And my screen won't advance. It should, but it's not. There we go. Okay. Sorry, technical difficulties. So I have a couple of rules. Just have to be clear how I operate. Rule 1 is a good wine is the one that you like. Don't let anyone tell you it's not a good wine. If you like it, it's a good wine. You make that decision, not other people. It's not critics, it's not LCBO employees, it's not friends, it's not relatives, it's you. So you know what's a good wine and what's not. I missed a slide there somehow. There we go. It went past my second slide. Rule 2, you drink a wine for its style, not for its rating, not for its number of stars, and or not for its 95 points. You drink it for its style. Style is what you like. So keep that in mind too. The problem with rating systems is there's multitudes of them out there. I've put up really the four most popular ones out there. There's the 100-point scale. It's been really popularized by the Wine Spectator. It was first invented by wine writer Robert Parker, but the Wine Spectator really made it popular. There's the 20-point scale. It was invented at University of California, Davis, and it was tweaked by wine writer Jancis Robinson. And she's a brilliant wine writer from England. I really love her stuff, but she likes to rate things out of 20. There's a 5-star scale, and the 5-star scale is devised by another wine writer I admire a lot called Michael Broadbent. And it came mainstream by a wine magazine called Decanter, which is probably the equivalent of Wine Spectator in Europe. It's published in England, and Decanter is a very well-known magazine. And then there's another one you'll sometimes see on hang tags in the LCBO. It's the 3-glass scale, Tre Bicchieri. It's an Italian scale, and it was pioneered by an Italian publisher, Libero Rosso. So you sometimes see things, Italian wines rated out of 3 glasses instead of any other scales. What I'm going to focus on tonight is the 2 most popular scales, the 100-point scale and the 5-star scale. I think those are the 2 you'll see used most often. So the 100-point scale, this is the Wine Spectator, this is Robert Parker's, it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere. So I thought, you know, how do you come up with that? Most people look at that score and think, oh, it's like an exam score, or it's like a university grade, something like that. It's like a percentage almost. And actually, when you're in the wine world, you know it's not, which is one of the reasons I'm not thrilled with it. Because 50 points of that score, if you pour the wine into a glass and you look at it and say it's wine, it gets 50 points right off the bat. So if it's wine, it gets 50 points on there. So it really is, in my estimation, it's not really a 100-point scale. They've gamed it to make it into a 100-point scale just because people like that number. People identify with things out of 100 easily. So they kind of gamed it to make it look like it's out of 100. But really, you do rate things as objectively as you possibly can using it. So you look at the color and the appearance, you know, how does it look on the glass? You check the aroma in the bouquet. You know, it's basically just what you smell. Is it complex? Is it fruity? Whatever. Flavor and finish. Flavor is easy. You know, it's how does that wine taste? Finish is something people don't often consider, but it's how long that flavor lingers on your tongue. That's what we call finish. And then there's a subjective 10 points, which really, this is one of the other things about the 100-point scale that drives me a little bit crazy, on the integrated experience. So this is really the reviewer giving it a mark out of 10, just pulling it out of the air based on what they think of it. So you can tell with that 10 points at the end, the difference between an 87-point wine and a 91-point wine could be just that reviewer's, you know, how he's feeling that day about that wine. So you're probably picking up on my bias. I know I'm not entirely thrilled with the 100-point scale. But let's look at how they evaluate things in the 100-point scale. This is Perez Cruz Cabernet Sauvignon Reserva. It's from Chile. It's actually an excellent wine. I really like this wine. It was reviewed by Steve Thurlow, who's a part of Wine Align. And if you like wine, Wine Align is a Canadian organization that does wine reviews, and they're well worth following, well worth reading. They write very well. But so that's the score. But when you read what they say about it, that's what I like to get into. It says the 2016 is another excellent vintage. They tell you it's well priced. They tell you it's juicy. They tell you it has blackberry. They talk about the fruitiness. They talk about the oak spice and the menthol and the tobacco, how smooth it is. And when they describe the wine like this to you, it makes me want to drink it. Like I'm reading this and I think this is a typical Cabernet Sauvignon. I want to go up and buy this when I read this. This is really interesting to me. So that's how people would use the 100-point scale to evaluate a wine. The 5-star scale, and I'll admit my bias, I use the 5-star scale myself. I find it a little less pretentious than the 100-point scale, and I think it's a little more appealing because it doesn't reduce wine to a number to me. Because wine is more than that. So once again, but it looks at similar things. You look at the color and the appearance, the aroma and the bouquet, and the flavor and finish. And you write notes on it. And then you assign an overall quality to it. anywhere from poor to outstanding, no stars to 5 stars. And I do this pretty much daily when I write about wine. I go through this process, and I can use the 100-point scale too, but this is my personal preference. So let's look at wine, and this is just gratuitous advertising for me, actually, because this is one of mine. But it's 4 stars out of 5, and this is a Rioja, Conde de Valdemar, Rioja Crianza. Crianzas are interesting. I like Crianzas because they're oak aged, but not more than 2 years, so they've still got a lot of fruitiness to them, and they've got about 2 years of bottle age before they're released too. So Riojas are interesting wines and interesting wines to write about. But once again, I'm describing the wine. Spanish Riojas are fairly unique in Europe because they use American oak barrels. This is just telling the reader a little bit about it, what differentiates it from some other European wines. I talk about the grape. It's based on Tempranillo. I talk about what body it has, and then the fruit flavors it has. And then I usually talk about what it pairs with fairly well. I really like this with pork and beef. It really works well. It's got lots of fruit. It's got lots of spice. I love a good Rioja, and like I say, I like this one. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. So how do ratings really help us with Rule 1 and Rule 2? Rule 1 is a good wine is one that you like, and Rule 2 is basically a wine is more than rating. So really, what's the value of ratings? And really, I think the real value in the ratings, they describe the wine style. It's tells you the wine. It talks about the wine. It paints a picture of the wine with words. When we write about it, we're going to say, here's what it is. Read it. Does that appeal to you? Would you like it? We're trying to paint that flavor and aroma profile of words for you, and that's I think the real value of ratings. But some people tell me, well, I don't even know what style I like. But it's not as daunting as you think if you go stepwise at it, and that's the scientist in me. I like to break things down stepwise. Once you get past red, white, sparkling, or rosé, you can choose those parts of the style fairly easily. You get into the other parts of the style. Do you like sweet wines? Do you like dry wines? The sweetness is important. What fruit flavors do you like? Do you prefer dark fruits like plums or blackberries, or do you prefer light fruits like green apple? It's all personal preference what type of fruits you like in your style. Do you like some of the other flavors that the wine could offer too, like vanilla or smoke or mint, or even things like whetstones or forest floor? Believe it or not, I find them there, and I think if you're attuned to them, you'll pick them up too. Or do you like, what kind of body do you like in your wine? Do you like a light-bodied wine, like a light Riesling? Or do you like a full-bodied wine, like a big Australian Shiraz? You know, once again, that's personal preference. Usually people have that style they prefer. And then there's the acidity and tannins. And acidity, a little hard for people to get their head wrapped around sometimes. Acidities, when you put a drop of lemon juice in your tongue and you salivate, that's acidity. And wine does the same thing. So the acidity is that what makes you salivate when you drink wine. So do you like that? If you like that feeling, that salivation, that aperitif kind of thing, that's real, I really like it. That's a high acidity. If you don't like that, you like a low acidity. With tannins, the easiest way to think about tannins is if you drink tea and you like or there's not tannins in coffee. There's you said coffee. Black tea. If you like black tea, and you take a sip of black tea without any milk in it, the inside of your mouth will almost pucker up. That's because there's tannins in tea. That's what tannins do. And tannins in wine do the same thing. They give that astringency, that feel in your mouth, that puckering feeling kind of almost, that astringency. And so do you like that? Do you like some of that grippiness to the wine or not? Because if you don't like that, you prefer a lower tannin wine. If you like that, you probably like a higher tannin wine. So once again, it's all personal preference. So what do I want you to take away from this brief presentation? Because I don't want to talk too long, so we want to get to the wine and cheese. That's why we're really here, right? So I think you should read wine reviews and ratings, and that's just, once again, self-interest. I think they really do help you sort out wines if you take the time to read the description. Because really, the number, to me, I could do without numbers and ratings entirely. I want to read that description because it'll speak to me and tell me if I'm going to like that wine. It helps me understand that wine style. The scores are secondary. I look at the scores after the fact. So it just falls under remember numbers aren't everything, and never forget rule 1 and rule 2. You know, the good wines, the ones you like. Don't let people tell you otherwise. So thank you. And we could have a little bit of time maybe for a few questions, and I'll ask Sue to maybe get the first wine out of the fridge for me when we're doing that. And I'll stop sharing my screen here so that I can see everybody again. There we go. So any questions I can answer while we're getting ready for the wine and cheese? Yeah, sparkling, yeah. Adrienne, you have a question? You have to unmute.
I did. So here's my dilemma. I enjoyed red wine, all varieties of red wines before.
Okay.
And then I was introduced to Shiraz.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't seem to break my palate away from Shiraz. Everything else, for some reason, just tastes like water to me.
No, you like, because you like full bodied, and you like the fruit. Like, that's dark fruit. So it's dark fruit, it's full bodied. The tannins aren't very high in Shiraz. The tannins are usually medium to medium high. So you probably don't like tons of tannin in your wine either. So once again, what you figured out is you figure out the style you like. The thing I say to people though, when they say I like something like a Shiraz or something, well, there's other wines out there that you can get really quite full-bodied wines that are like that. If you go to the south of France and get like a Côte du Rhône or something, you get really full-bodied wines with lots of fruit, not too much tannin, stylistically similar and not the same. They're not nearly the same, but you can branch over and try that, and you might well like them. You just might well like them because they have that similarity, that the intensity of fruit, they have not too much tannin. Like I say, that's the joy of knowing a little bit more about wine when you go to shop for it. It just helps you sort of direct yourself in another direction, because you know, there's nothing wrong with Shiraz at all, but the wine world is gigantic. Like most people, their wine world's like this. I know because of what I do. The wine world's just huge, and there's so much out there to enjoy, and I really don't want people to miss out on some of the great wines out there that exist. So, but yeah, and someone just put a comment that they love wine. If you can't tell, I love wine. I am 100% with you on that. I love wine.
Awesome.
Okay, so if we have no other questions, yeah. So does anyone have any wine with them tonight? Did they buy any of the wines on the list? Adriana did. No one else? No?
Go to porcelain.
Okay. I'll talk about them then a little bit, and why I think you should pair them with some of the things I've chosen. So this, I'm trying to get a good angle on it. This is Cabello. This is a sparkling from Malivoire in Niagara. Someone has Josh. Okay, that's California. That lovely wine too. No, you won't have any issues there. This particular one is a really nice sparkling. It's off dry, so it's not bone dry. It's made in the style of Prosecco, so it's actually quite fruity. It's got a lot of lemon lime flavors in it. It's made mostly with Riesling. It's got some Sauvignon Blanc Vidal in it, but the assistant winemaker at Malivoire is an expatriate from Italy, so they've actually made this their project, is to make this Prosecco style wine in Niagara. It's really a wonderful sparkling just to sip. You get the glass close enough. It's got really nice color. It's really pale lemon. It's a really nice color. It's got nice bubbles coming up. And if you sniff it, it definitely has that lime aroma and that lemon, green apples. And the body, you have to take a sip to tell the body. It's kind of lightish. It's not really. It's between light and medium. It's not really a big heavy duty wine. This kind of wine is great to sip by itself. Great for the summertime sitting on the patio because it's refreshing. It's got that lemon lime flavor. It's very refreshing. Great with lighter foods, like I would have it with something like Chinese food, as long as it's not too intensely flavored. And with cheese, great with cheese and charcuterie. This is a really great wine to pair with it. And the first cheese of the evening, we have some triple cream brie in our house here. It doesn't do it justice with the light hitting it, but anyway. And maybe actually before I move to the brie, I do have a red to pair with this as well. Actually, I'll back up a little. Sparkling. Why is it a good pairing with brie? Brie is, especially triple cream brie, very rich, very high in fat. So when you have it, it coats your palate. It completely coats your palate. That fat completely coats your palate. So what you need is something like this. Is a contrasting pairing. When you take a sip of this, that acidity in the wine and that fruit freshness washes away all that richness. So you can have another bite of that cheese and you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. It takes away that mouth coating effect of the cheese. So that's what we call a contrasting pairing. Now, I knew some people are red lovers, and I'm a red lover. Well, I'm a wine lover, period. The red I chose is this is from Rose Hall Run. This is Rose Hall Run's Pinot Noir. Some of the fruit comes from Niagara, some of the fruit comes from Prince Edward County. It's a really good entry-level Pinot Noir. It is really, really good. Why I chose these wines is because when I said descriptions are more important than scores, none of these wines are 100-point wines. These are not 95-point wines. These are all probably 87 to 90-point wines, which you can find some pretty happy ones like these. So the Rose Hall Run Pinot, Pinot is a wonderful grape that does very, very well in Ontario. It's one of our superstars. The climate and soil here are very similar to that of Burgundy, which is really good because Burgundy is the epitome of Pinot Noir in the world. So this is a lovely color Pinot. It's got great color. It's a little bit light, but it's still kind of a nice medium ruby. And it's got great aromas it's got aromas of earth and cranberry, a little bit of spiciness and raspberry. It's got those typical things you want in a Pinot. For an entry-level Pinot to have those things in it, it's a good thing. It's showcasing the grape. So this is a good thing. The beauty of this wine with the cheese, that brie is washed rind. So it's got a ripened rind on the outside of it. So that is very earthy, gives it a very earthy flavor. And one of the flavors in Pinot is you'll pick up and it is an earthiness. It definitely has an earthiness to it. So that's a complementary pairing. It's going to actually work with the cheese, and they have somewhat similar flavors. So that's a complementary pairing. It's a great one too. I'm going to actually have a piece of cheese with it now, and just try out my things I've been talking about. So this is definitely rich. This is the triple cream brie. So this is lots of butter fat. This is, I think, like 34% butter fat. It's lovely. And you have a sip, and yep, that sparkling just clears away all of the that rich butter fat, and you're ready for your next piece. I'll try a sip of the Pinot with it. Oh yeah, nicely tied together because that earthiness, the two just pair together beautifully. My wife's giving me another piece here to try. The earthiness in this cheese and the Pinot, really nice pairing. I really, Pinot is such a lovely wine. It pairs with so many things. It's really versatile, but it's really beautiful with this cheese with that earthy rind. Just enjoy the second piece. Mm-hmm. What I would suggest when you're moving between wines, when you're doing a wine and cheese pairing, if you have a little bit of bread, have some bread in between. Just cleanses your palate a little, gets you ready for the next wine. So I'm gonna have a little bit of bread and a little bit of water. Someone's saying they're deviating. Roxanne says I'm deviating, having a California white wine, Carla Ross. No, deviating is fine. There's nothing wrong with trying different wines, and that's part of the adventure. Part of the journey is you try different wines with things. Don't be afraid to experiment, because that's how you learn what you like with your pairing things. Like I can tell you some pairings I know because I've been a wine fanatic for 40 years. I've got a lot of experience with pairing wines and food. But you know, the ultimate test is, do you like it? So yeah. That's the number one thing. Do you like it? So the second wine, let's see if we can get this in focus here. This is the Ned. This is a Sauvignon Blanc, and it's a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. In New Zealand, New Zealand's a great place to get Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc originally came from Bordeaux and the Loire Valley in France. That's where it originated. It didn't originate in New Zealand. But New Zealand has a very similar climate to Bordeaux. It's a maritime climate. Almost all of New Zealand is a maritime climate, just like Bordeaux does. So growing Sauvignon Blanc there, it's a good place to grow Sauvignon Blanc. And they do a great job with it. It's not quite like Bordeaux's. Bordeaux's is a little more restrained. New Zealand's a little more body and a little more fruit. But it's great Sauvignon Blanc. It's got a lot of character. And this one's, like I say, this is not a, this is not a 100-point wine. This is probably, I'd rate this one probably, this is like a 3.5 star, 3.5 plus maybe. You don't have to, like I say, no one has to drink 4 and 5-star wines every night. It's not necessary to enjoy the wines, the styles you like. So this one has some really nice herbaceousness to it. Sauvignon Blanc has that grassiness to it, but the New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc has some tropical fruit to it too. It's quite ripe. So it gets into the citrus and pineapple, and it's really got a lovely, beautiful aroma to it. So I have a sip, and this is definitely into the medium-bodied wine. It's got that lovely feel in your mouth that just tells you it's medium-bodied. Now this wine, I thought we'd pair it up with Parmesan cheese and Parmigiano Reggiano. If you get the real stuff from Italy, it's got a bit of a saltiness to it. It's really amazing. I got a piece here. Break a little bit off, and Parmigiano has that graininess and saltiness, and it really when you have a piece of Parmigiano, you find it complements the wine. It's got a bit of saltiness to it, and the saltiness and that character amplifies the fruit in the wine, I find. Yeah. So when you have the Parmesan with that, the wine tastes fruity. The wine actually brings up the fruitiness in the wine. Plus, I find the herbaceousness, that green grassiness that Sauvignon Blanc has works well with Parmesan. It's the reason you like Parmesan cheese shaved onto your salad. The green flavors in the salad and the Parmigiano just work beautifully together. And it's exactly the same with this Sauvignon Blanc. The Sauvignon Blanc has a bit of that grassiness, that green vegetable, and it just works beautifully with Parmesan. It's just any wine like that. You can get Vermentinos and things from Italy that work like this with Parmesan. The nice thing about Parmesan, it's fairly versatile. You can drink red wine with Parmesan too. Something like a medium-bodied red, not too tannic. It'll improve the fruit. It'll make it fruitier too. So if you drink a Chianti, most Chiantis are medium-bodied, not too tannic reds. You'll find that the fruitiness really jumps out when you have some Parmesan with it. And so, like I say, Parmesan is not just for grating on your pasta and for shaving on your salad. It's absolutely terrific on a cheese plate. It's a really versatile cheese, and it really works well with a number of wines. But particularly, it brings out the fruit in some of these whites. So I quite like it with white wine. Hmm? Hmm. Anyone have any questions when I'm chewing here? Nope.
So I want to find out, so does the wine bring out the flavor in the food, or does the food bring out the flavor in the wine? Which one is doing the work?
Yes. both. It depends on the pairing. Sometimes the wine makes the food taste better. Sometimes the food makes the wine taste better. When the angels sing, both taste better. That's pretty rare. That's a very rare pairing to hit that both taste better. But almost
wonderful.
always one will taste better. When you're tasting, you'll find either the wine improves dramatically or the food does. The example I use with people, most people like Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon fans? Yes, I'm a Cabernet Sauvignon fan. Cabernet Sauvignon is very, very high acidity, very high tannins. It's really grippy, especially if it's young. It's really, really grippy. If you have that with a piece of meat, like a steak, the steak or portobello mushroom, something something to soak up those tannins. They literally, like a steak and portobello mushroom, things like that, act like a sponge. They soak up those tannins. All of a sudden, those tannins almost disappear, and the fruit in the wine just explodes. So that's why people, they may not think about it, but they love Cabernet Sauvignon with things like grilled mushrooms and steak. That's why they love it. They just haven't really put the things in a row to figure it out, but that's why they love it, because that wine gets so much better with the food. It just really does. So that's yeah, and yeah, don't, yeah. Sue's reminding me, please, if you want to show how not to pair wine, if you have some leftover Cabernet Sauvignon, one of the most shocking things you could do, and I did it once by accident at a restaurant because I wasn't thinking. They bring out the chocolate cake for dessert, and you have some wine left in your glass, and you're not thinking you're eating chocolate cake. You accidentally grab the glass and have a sip. Huh. The sweetness and all that tannin and acid is not a happy mixture. It makes the wine taste bitter. The wine turns very bitter very quickly. It doesn't give you a good pairing. That's an example of something you're going to hate probably if you do it. If you want to pair wine with your chocolate cake, you need sweet. You have to bring up the sweetness an awful lot to match it. So that's a good segue, if no one has any other questions, to our next wine. This little beauty. This is probably the wine that I would rate the highest of anything we tried tonight. This is probably a 90 points. I give this one 4 stars. I would give this one easily 4 stars. Maybe four plus even. It's a late harvest Riesling from Niagara, which means that the grapes have been left on the vines so they almost desiccate a little bit. So they're not picking this off until November. So what happens then is you lose a lot of the water out of the grapes, and it concentrates the flavors. So you end up with this really intense wine. It's not ice wine, because only ice wine's even more concentrated, but it's kind of like a baby ice wine. Let's think of it that way. Get into the bottle here. And it's sweet. It is very sweet. Like this you're into about 100 plus grams per residual sugar per liter. So you're in sweet. This is dessert wine territory. You can pour this with desserts. but you like fruit desserts, it's wonderful with. This would be great with something like the dessert with lemon, like a lemon cassata or something. It'd be wonderful with, because it has some of those flavors in it. Because Riesling has citrusy flavors, but the nice thing is it has, my cork is starting to break a little bit here. There we go, got it. The nice thing about Riesling though is it has wonderfully high acidity, and acidity is a very good thing when the wine's sweet, because it gives it, that's when people talk about a wine has balance, that's what they're talking about. So even though it's sweet, it doesn't taste horribly sweet. It doesn't taste sickeningly sweet, because that acidity gives it balance. So you have a little sniff. You can see this one's a little bit darker than the Sauvignon Blanc. It's got that it's got that concentration, like I say, if you're from leaving the vines, the grapes hanging on the vine and drying out a little bit. But the nose is like, when you smell it, it's intense. It's got that citrus, that lemon limes there, but it's into stone fruits too, like apricots and peaches. It's really that concentrated nose. Really, really beautiful. And you have a sip. Sweet, like it's sweet, but it's not sickeningly sweet. Like it, even though there's probably about 110, 120 grams of residual sugar in here, a lot of residual sugar, it doesn't really set you off when you have it, that you're drinking syrup. It's that acidity gives it that lovely balance. Now, sweet wines like this, or Sauterne is another sweet wine from France, or Riesling from Germany, like a Trockenbernauslese. Sweet wines, perfect pairings for some cheeses. Really strong cheeses. Like these are wine, like these sweet wines pair beautifully with strong cheeses. So I have a piece, and I know Adriana bought some blue cheese too. Mine is a blue Benedictine from Quebec. Beautiful blue. Blue cheese, tremendously strong flavors. Once again, that bit of saltiness to it. It really works well with wine, especially these sweet wines. It is a classic pairing. Sue's in the background saying if you like pâté and foie gras and things like that, sweet wines are classic pairing with those two. So try, if you buy some of this, try some of the wine first, so you know what the flavors of the wine like, and have some of the cheese, and try a sip, and it's just wonderful. Like that fruit and that intermingling. The wine is just beautifully fruity with this cheese. Lovely pairing. The sweet wines with things like blue cheeses, the stronger the blue cheese, the better. With some things like Stilton that are hugely strong blue cheeses. Sweet wines are at the absolute best pairings, in my opinion, and not just mine, lots of other people as well. It's it's just like I say, one of the classic pairings. If you've ever tried Sauterne, and if you ever chance to try Sauterne from Bordeaux, it's a sweet wine from Bordeaux. Absolutely beautiful with cheeses like this as well. But from Ontario, this is a little gift. This is, yeah. Someone's saying they don't like blue cheese.
I'm with you.
Sue does not like blue cheese one bit. She's actually asked to allow me to have some in the house because I'm doing this tasting. So thank you for letting me do this, people. This is great. I'm getting some blue cheese, but it actually does taste better with this wine. Like I think the blue cheese flavor really improves with this wine, and someone I see people are saying that it tastes great, and I don't like blue cheese. Thank you. It is. I really think it does. I think it does change the character of that pairing. That some people will like it. I'll never convince you. I've been trying for almost 35 years or over 35 years to convince her to try blue cheese, and she runs from it. So. Yeah, Sue's in the background here, and she's saying other strong cheeses. Like you get some of the really strong wash rind cheeses, like from Burgundy or from Riepel from Quebec. Riepel is a very strong wash rind cheese. The sweet wines do very well with those too. You'll like those. The other wine I go to with those kind of wash rind cheeses, I go to something the Pinot Noirs. The Pinot Noirs with those wash rind cheeses, just the flavors intermingle and work really, really well together. So, so like I say, just some ideas on pairing wine and cheese. I know people usually have charcuterie with this wine and cheese too. In particular, the Pinot and the Sauvignon, I think, work very well with charcuterie. The Pinot in particular. Pinot has acidity. It has a little bit of tannin, not too much, but the fruit flavors in it stand up really nicely to the charcuterie, and the charcuterie. I'm trying to think flavors. It's spicy. The charcuterie has that spiciness to it, and the Pinot has that spiciness, so they work well together. So I see someone's in chat here. Whoop. Trying to keep track of this too. I don't see anything. Oh, okay. There's maybe at the far end of a really long wine tasting, I'd possibly reconsider maybe trying blue cheese. Probably not. Okay, well. Yeah, you can try something like Grey Owl from Quebec. It's a goat cheese with ash. It's no blue, but it's still a strong flavored cheese, and you can still pair it with something like this. If you want to avoid the mold, as my wife calls it. Sue continually tells me that you should throw out moldy cheese, and I quite love the stuff. So that's a little very, very micro pairing lesson on wines and cheeses. And I focused a lot on local wines because Niagara produces some absolutely superb local wines that I enjoy, and I encourage everyone else to enjoy, especially during times like this with COVID, where everyone's trying to help each other. The Niagara wineries have a great product, and I drink it. Probably 50% of the time I drink Niagara wines. I really like their product, and some of them are just spectacular. Like I say, the Pinots and things like this Indian Summer Riesling are just lovely wines that they just beg for pouring at dinner tables. So it's just nice. But I've been doing a lot of talking. Any questions? Feel free to unmute and ask. You don't have to wear your fingers typing. Val, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, Trevor, I was just wondering, because with the cheese, of course, you have fruits usually.
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend? I want to try that Bello from Malivoire.
Kebello, yeah, the Kebello.
Bello. Yeah, that one sounded something that I like. What kind of fruits would you add to your cheese plate?
You could add dried fruits, actually, or work nicely. Something like dried apricots or something like that work fairly well with things like that. Trying to think what other fruits. Get strawberries. You could even have some grapes.
Okay.
Kiwis, things like that.
Oh,
Figs. Oh yeah, awesome. Adriana's absolutely right. Figs are absolutely wonderful with wine, especially Italian wines. I like with figs. Figs on cheese plate are really wonderful. Fresh figs. If you can get some fresh figs.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Thanks.
You are welcome. And I think Deborah was first. I think.
It's kind of a general question, and I expect the answer is going to be, it depends. But what I found with some, I'll say local wines, like Prince Edward County, is there kind of a rule of thumb of, what's the shelf life? Because they don't seem to last as long, or they should be consumed sooner than the stuff you get at the LCBO.
It's that depends. Yeah, it really does, because I have some Prince Edward County Pinots that I would gladly hold on to for 10 years, no problem. And I think they'd be better for it. I think they'd start to develop some really earthy, mushroomy flavors that you get from a really nicely developed wine. But not all the Prince Edward County ones. I think that probably the most age-worthy ones that come to mind right to the top of my head from Prince Edward County are you get a good Pinot or a good Chardonnay, and they'll age.
Yep.
They'll age. some of the other some of the people up there are growing some interesting things. Or some of the people are even growing things like Petit Verdot and things like that. And there's enough acidity in tannin in Petit Verdot. It should age as long as there's enough fruit. The biggest problem with aging wine, you don't want basically the fruit has to outlast the tannin.
Yeah.
Because you want to soften the tannin, but you don't want to have it drink it and then find the fruit's died. It's gone. So really, when you're buying your wines, you have to look at the three very critical things: the fruit, you have to look at the acidity, and you have to look at the tannin. And if you want a wine to be long lived, it has to have good fruit, good tannin, and ideally pretty high acidity, because those things will preserve a wine and make it last longer.
Okay.
So yeah, well, it's using the background. You're saying some wines are meant to be drunk. Like I would say 90% or 95% maybe even the wines in the world today are meant to be drunk when you buy them. Like they're not meant to be saved or kept. You know, they're meant to be drunk immediately when you buy them. They're not meant for aging. That subset though gets so much better. Like even from Niagara, like if you get a really good Cabernet Franc from Niagara or a Cabernet Sauvignon in a good season, or Riesling, like all those wines age beautifully. Good Pinots from Niagara too age beautifully. They have the structure to do it. But like I say, it's not this. It's not usually the under $20 ones. Usually you have to go above the $20 point and buy some of their second tier wines, and you'll have a lot more luck in aging them than their sort of lower tier wines.
Okay. Good to know. No, I hung on to one for about 5 years and it did not taste good anymore. So
No.
I kind of learned to drink them right away. So
Yeah. It's when you're aging wine, it is not an exact science. Like you taste it, and I taste it, and I make my notes and try and decide if it'll age or not.
yeah.
But then the truth of the matter is you have to try it. So usually, if I think a wine's aged, I'll buy multiple bottles, and I'll say I think it'll be good in 4 to 5 years. I'll probably open a bottle at 2 or 3 just to see how it's. I'll probably have 4 or 5 or 6 bottles of it at least. And I'll open a bottle 2 or 3 years just to see how it's doing. And at that point, I'll probably make a decision either, oh yeah, I made the right thing and it'll be good for 10 years maybe even, or I'll say, nope, it needs to get. This is going to go up to the top of the racks, and I'm going to start drinking it because it's not. I don't think it's going to last as long as I thought. So you have to always be ready to reconsider based on what the wine tells you.
Right on. Yeah. Thank you.
And someone else has a question. I'm getting some questions in the chat too, so I don't want to miss them. So I'm just going to pull them up here. Roxanne, most people think expensive wine the better. What do you think? That's a slippery slope. I think that to a certain extent you have to, you cut less corners when you buy more expensive wine to a point. You don't. Because you have to make compromises to make a wine for under, I'd say $20, you have to make compromises. You're not going to have as much. If it's a red, you're not going to have as much new oak in it, or maybe no oak at all. You're going to make some choices. The winemaker's going to make some choices to try and keep that price point down, because we're not all buying $40 bottles of wine every night. By the time you get to $80, $100. You're probably in the premium range where they're not cutting any corners whatsoever. Like they are doing everything possible. Anything probably even between $50 and $100. They're not cutting many corners. They're doing everything they can to make that wine as good as it can be. Now, the only problem with that is that there's still marketing involved in wine. And you will get people who overmarket their wines. So they will try and market I'll give you an example. This is a crazy example, but Mateus Rosé. How many people have heard and tried Mateus Rosé? Yeah, Mateus Rosé. It is not my favorite rosé. It's kind of sweet. It was very, very popular back in the 70s. Not in my opinion what I would call a good food rosé. It's way too sweet. It's got a little bit fizziness to it. It came out. It comes out in a very beautiful round bottle though, so it looks very pretty. And it right now it sells in the liquor store for I think around $12 or something. Yeah, 11, 12 bucks. It's not expensive. It's not expensive. It used to sell when I was young. It used to sell for like $5 or $6. It was cheap. But remember, I've been drinking wine for over 40 years. But when Matisse first came out, it came out right out around the time of the Second World War because Portugal had a glut of red wine and they didn't know what to do with it. And so eventually they hired some French winemakers, and because they'd never made rosé in Portugal, and the French winemakers taught them how to make rosé. And they started to market the heck out of it and sell it to places like Brazil and Canada and the US and Europe. And the one story I was told was this gentleman his father was in the military, and when he started dating his mother, he took his mother to this really nice restaurant in London, England, and he talked to the sommelier, and said, this is a big date for me. I want a nice bottle of champagne. He said, oh well, sir, instead of champagne, we have this new Portuguese rosé that everyone's raving about. It's even more expensive than champagne. and they were sold this for some exorbitant amount of money that it was better than champagne. So like I say, the marketing after the Second World War, this was something really special. It's okay. There's nothing special about it. So that's the only thing with expensive. Sometimes you'll get people marketing things and spending a lot of money on it, that trying to push things for higher than they should be. So more expensive doesn't always guarantee good. It helps a little bit, but it doesn't always. You still have to be able to judge the wine for what it is. That's a very long answer, but yeah, that's my thought on expensive wines. Anyone else with any burning wine questions or wine and food questions? Oh, Domino. Yeah, Sue brought up the most expensive wine in the world probably is one called Romane Conti. Romane Conti comes from Burgundy. Very small piece of property in Burgundy, and it is probably one of the top wines in the world. It sells for anywhere between probably $5,000 to $15,000 a bottle if you can get it. It's ridiculous. Is it great wine? It's absolutely fabulous. I tried it once in my life, and it is absolutely phenomenal wine. Would I pay $5,000 a bottle? No, I would not. No, I would not. I would go somewhere else in Burgundy and spend $100 and enjoy it almost as much. So once again, that's scarcity in marketing. It's driving the price up. So that wine is priced way beyond its beyond its quality point. Like I say, is it a good wine that's worth $100, $200? Probably. Yeah, probably a couple $100. It's worth that because it's amazing. Is it worth $5,000? No, I don't think it is. I don't think I don't have that kind of money, and I don't think most people have that kind of money to throw away on wine. I'd rather buy more of something else than spend $5,000 in Romane Conti. Yeah, Sue's saying that if you go to if you're ever going through Charles de Gaulle duty free, they always have some Romane Conti for sale there for the unsuspecting. What about grape type and soil? Sorry, read the question. How does it affect the wine? That's a good question. Great question actually, because it does affect the wine. It's we call it terroir. Good question. Good question, Edgar. The terroir affects the wine dramatically. If you don't have the right soil and the right climate and the right grapes planted in the right place, it's impossible to make good wine. It's why Niagara's wines have been taken quantum leaps in quality in the last probably 20 years, is they are figuring out the right grapes, the right site, the right soils, the right microclimates. Even in Niagara, even in that parcel of land, with different microclimates, different soils. So why they're focusing now, you'll notice a lot more Pinot Noirs and Chardonnays and Rieslings and Cabernet Francs coming out of Niagara because it's ideally suited for those grapes. The climate is perfect. The soil is excellent. It's that limestone, dolomitic limestone clay soil, perfect for grape growing. The grapes are kind of counterintuitive. Really, the less fertile the soil, the better the grape quality you get out. So it's absolutely kind of, if you plant grapevines in really fertile soil, they'll overgrow, they'll get too much leaf, they'll get too much fruit, and you'll have this diluted, ugly wine that they'll make. It's awful. And places do it in the world. Trust me. If you buy a wine that's absolutely dirt cheap, but it's $4 or $5 for $6, you're probably going to get ones grown in a fertile area because they can get huge yields of grapes. It's not the best quality grape though. To get the good quality grapes, you have to plant in the least fertile areas. You plant rocky clay soils where nothing else grows, and then the grapes kind of fight and struggle and produce this great quality fruit. And like I say, it's climate is key. Climate is really key. Like Bordeaux would not be Bordeaux if it wasn't a maritime climate. It was like the Atlantic Ocean. You would not grow good Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot there. It's quite far north. It should be too cold, but the Atlantic Ocean moderates the climate and allows that to happen. And they have great gravelly soils for growing Cabernet Sauvignon. So yeah, absolutely critical. You need the right grapes, the right soil, the right climate, and then you just need a good winemaker to guide it along to make it good after you do everything else right. That's the last step. Yeah, people forget that really winemaking is farming. Oh, Juliet has to go. Thank you for joining us. If you have no other questions, or if there are other questions, I'm happy to stay on. But if you have no other questions, I don't want to keep you this evening.
I just want to say thank you. It's very informative.
You're very welcome. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. And I found out why I can like one wine that I've had with dinner and try it again another time and not like it. When you mentioned about the pairing with the steak.
Yep.
I thought that's why. You're.
No, it's absolutely why, because the food and wine is such a wonderful interaction. I call it magical. It really is a magical interaction with food and wine, and those wines that, like, especially European style wines, they were never designed, like, Europeans aren't people that drink a lot of wine before dinner, a couple glasses before dinner. They'd have like beer, or they'd have sparkling wine or something. They don't drink like a still table wine before dinner usually. So their table wines are designed to have with food. They're designed to work better with food. So when you're drinking your your Chianti or something, like it isn't a lot of Chiantis aren't sippers. They're really high acidity, and they're really, they're not something by that second glass that acidity is, starting to take the enamel off your teeth almost sometimes. So, but you pair it with some tomato sauce and some pasta, and all of a sudden it's wonderful. It's just wonderful. Yeah, it's wonderful.
No, thank you for your time. That was good information.
You're very welcome. Cheers. Oh, trying to keep track of the chat here. I think we got all the questions. No one's driving tonight. Yes, that's the one advantage of these virtual events. No one has to go anywhere. I never worry. My virtual dinners, when I send out 2 bottles of wine for one of my virtual dinners, I never worry about my patrons because they're sitting at home. So they have 2 bottles of wine and they're very happy by the end of the evening, but they're just sitting at home.
No Uber, no need for anything. Trent,
No
tell
Uber,
us
no nothing. No.
Tell us a little bit about your upcoming event next weekend in the Barrie area, is it not?
It is. I do a lot of events with Baccio Trattoria, and Chef Will there predominantly cooks Roman style Italian food. But Chef Will is an interesting guy. He was born in Peru, and he grew up they moved to Italy, and he grew up outside Rome, and then he eventually ended up in Canada. And so he has quite a diverse background for his cuisine. Plus, he's cooked in other places before he owned his own restaurant. So we usually do Italian food, obviously, because Baccio Trattoria is Italian. We usually do Italian food, but we've done Peruvian food sometimes. And this time, he and I were talking about doing something different, change things up. You know, we've been doing Italian for the last 3 or 4 virtual dinners. And I was talking, geez, you know, there's a lot of people interested in Spanish cuisine, I find, and Spanish wines, and they don't know a lot about them. I'd love to present some Spanish wines. And he says, well, that's great. He says, I spent a chunk of my younger chef years in charge of tapas for a Spanish restaurant in Toronto. And he says, let me make a tapas tasting menu. So I'll let me make 5 or 6 small plates, and you can go out and get some Spanish wine. And so that's what we're doing. So I have a selection. Yeah, I'll get this. Stu's reminding me. So I have I think 4 different Spanish wines we can choose from, and then we're going to pair them up with the tapas plates. And then as a little bonus, we're having Eleanor Daft from Vision Travel join us. And Eleanor is a travel food just junkie. She loves travel. She loves good food. And she is going to take us to Spain virtually and show us what Spain has to offer food-wise, scenery-wise. And so when you're eating some of your tapas and then finish talking about the wine and we'll finish talking about the food, Eleanor is going to take you and show you Spain. And it's really great. We've done this before with some other events, and people really love it because when they're eating and drinking, then they get to actually sort of imagine they're sitting in Spain and in the central square having a glass of wine and some tapas.
Wow, that's amazing, Trent. I hope I can join by that time. I know I have something happening that evening as well. Now, Miss Hottie, if she hasn't left already, Miss Hottie is doing the virtual cooking next Saturday. What wine would you recommend people enjoy then?
Yeah,
And I'm right here.
There you are, Roxanne.
There she is. Hey, Roxanne. Are you going to be using some of your jerk marinade, correct?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, my go-to with things like that, because it's got lots of spiciness and a little bit of heat. You need a wine with some body, and you need wine with some refreshing, and it has to have lots of fruit, because if you don't have lots of fruit, that hot spiciness will kill it. You might as well be drinking water. It'll taste like water. So my go-to for that kind of cuisine is a Gewurztraminer. It's a wine that's hard to say, but it's a great wine. It's got full body. It's really quite full bodied. It's intensely fruity. It's very aromatic. It's got aromas of rose and citrus, and it's really a beautiful wine. It originated in France in the Alsace region. We grow some of it in Ontario, though. We do grow some of it in Ontario. So so you can get some people can get some from Ontario. You can get great ones from Alsace too in France. Lots of body, lots of fruit. Great with spicy food like that. It's really, really good with things like that. So I would go out and look for a Gewurztraminer, an off-dry one. Be careful. Some of them are dry and some of them are off-dry. When I say off-dry, you want something probably 10 to 14 grams of residual sugar. That you're kind of the off-dry territory. Then you want drier in the 6 grams or so below. You know, you don't want it too dry, because if it's too dry, it won't work well with the spice. It really won't. So you just want something a little bit sweet type of Gewurztraminer, off-dry Gewurz. That will really make it great. You really enjoy it.
That makes great sense, because they usually say sweet helps to counteract spice. So that actually does make sense.
Yeah. An off-dry Riesling will work too. Gewurztraminer has more body though. That's the only thing I like with Gewurz. An off-dry Riesling would work too, but a Gewurz is more body. So that it has a little extra bonus because it's full body. And I see, Roxanne, you had a question too about white wine used in cooking. Red wines work well. Red wines work as well. Yeah, I use red wines when I cook, especially if I'm braising meat. I'll use red wines. You know, I have an Italian braised beef recipe I make. I've posted the recipe online a few times. Definitely, I use red for that, because you want the tannin to help break down that. I use stew beef to make this braise with, and you cook it in the oven for like 3 hours, and that wine just melds and breaks it down, and you end up with this lovely melange of wine and that tender beef, and it's just, and spices. And put some thyme in it. It's just wonderful. Anyway, I like to
Oh,
eat.
that
I like
sounds
to eat too.
amazing.
I like to eat too.
Sounds good.
I posted
So-
the recipe online. So.
Sue, we're all coming over for dinner, so make room for us. As soon as this opens up, we're coming over.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'll have to make an extra big pot.
Would you mind posting in our event page the wine that you recommend for Miss Hottie Hottie's Friday? That maybe one or two that
Sure.
you recommend. I mean, I was trying to make out the name, but I'm sorry I couldn't, and I haven't even had any wine tonight. So
Yeah, like I said, Gewurztraminer is very, very difficult to say and spell, but it's a great wine to drink, and not many people know it. So it's a great one to get to know.
that's awesome. Well, Trent, always a pleasure. Definitely keep Trent in mind for any of your upcoming, as soon as we're back open and ready to mingle and socialize events. You know, he does anything from small parties, correct me if I'm wrong, Trent. So, and he works with local restaurants whenever he can. So he does help to support local businesses as well as we all are trying to do. So I want to thank Sue for being your co-pilot there. Sue's going to be one of our Sue's going to be one of our speakers later on in the week as well. So for those that came a little later, don't forget about the pose. Choose to challenge. We're we're celebrating International Women's Day. We're celebrating each other. We're celebrating our accomplishments. And you know what? Sometimes we even need to celebrate our failures. Sometimes things just don't go right. But guess what? Out of that, success will come, because one, we learn from it, and we just get better. I mean, we're like wine. Women are like wine. Look at the variety of wine that Trent says that we have in the world. So we're all diverse. We all come at different stages of our lives. So celebrate women, celebrate those near to you and dear to you today. So thank you again. Don't forget about our other events, and it'll be the same way. Calendar invite in your email. Any other questions?
Thank you. That was wonderful.
And thank you for making me a part of it. I just love talking about wine. So thank you.
That
Thank
was
you for
great.
giving me an
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Have a
Appreciate
great
it.
night, guys.
Have a good
you.
night.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.